So back in 2008, I was first introduced to Facebook. I have always been somewhat of a techie kind of guy, but I was never really on the social side of things. So I had heard about it, but I never really engaged in it until about 2008, somewhere in there. And I got on it, and I was just amazed at what I found. Before long, I had found family members that I hadn't talked to in years. Weeks went by, a couple months, and I was connected with school friends that I hadn't talked to in decades. And I found out that as time went on, my friend group began to grow and grow and grow. And I found myself pretty feeling good about myself because I looked at it and I'm like, wow, I got a lot of friends. I must be a pretty popular guy. But as I looked at my friend list, I realized, I never talked to these people when I was in school. Now all of a sudden, I think I'm best friends with them out of school 20 years later. I'm looking at their lives and what they post, and I'm like, I don't even know them. I don't even care about them. And as time went on, I started to realize that a lot of my self-worth and who I was and trying to gain more connections, it was feeding this idea about me and who I was in a belief that if I was just connecting with enough people, I would gain from that a sense of worth of who I was. But over the years, I started to realize that it wasn't working. In fact, I'd look at their lives, and instead of feeling good about myself, they would post things that made me feel bad about myself because it seemed like their life was so awesome. And so I kind of looked at this and I realized, my life at the time specifically was filled with a lot of people, a lot of acquaintances for people that were connected with me on a shallow level. But if I were to dig a little deeper, they weren't there. I was surrounded by people digitally and somewhat physically, but in an emotional connection, it just wasn't there. But this isn't something that's unique to me. In fact, there was a Harvard study that came out a little while ago, and it said over the past 5 years, the average American has not gained one new deep friendship. It went on to say that the study conducted said that most people, if they had a problem at 3 o'clock in the morning, there's only 2 people on average that they would feel comfortable calling. I mean, if that isn't an argument for the church, right off the bat, I don't know what is. But don't call me at 3 o'clock in the morning, but anyway. But we're living in a world that is so connected, yet it's so distant. We're filled with digital connections and digital friends, but on the flip side, many of us feel so alone. We feel so disconnected, and we feel as though we're traveling through life kind of by ourselves. And we get into this routine where we're trying to prove something to everybody. We're trying to prove this because what we think and the way we operate is that if we can just be worthy enough, if people will just buy into the fact that I am worth being a friend, then they'll kind of like me. They will give me value. And so as I said, what we do is we go online and we just look at those suggestions and we're like, add friend, add friend, add friend, add friend. Because somehow that's going to speak to me, right? That's going to tell me that I'm really worth it. But it doesn't just happen digitally. It happens in our real life. We work so hard. We pad our resumes. We join all of these things. We do all of these activities and events to try and build up a resume that we can give to the world. We can give to people to say, hey, will you be my friend? Because look at what I've done. Look at how worthy I am to be your friend. We do it in church even. We come in and we want people to look at us in a certain way. We want to feel as though we are worthy to be their friends. And so what I've noticed at church a lot of times is that we put on this curated image for people to look at, that they will look at us somehow and they'll think, hey, you're a spiritual guy. You look like Jesus really loves you. You must be a valuable person because you've got it all together. We talk about it. People say, how you doing? Well, God is so good. God has blessed my life. Everything is awesome. Everything is so great. And we want people to think that, hey, what you see on Sunday is who I am. I mean, we even had a term for it years ago. We would say, put on your Sunday best. Because we want to convince everybody else that, hey, we've got it all together. Our lives are spiritually in line with the way Christ wants us to live. And thereby, if we prove that to everybody, we will be worthy of your friendship. You will look at me and you will think to yourself, that's a guy worth knowing. That's a guy worth being a friend, and you will be my friend. But life happens, doesn't it? Life happens, and there's these problems with our friendships sometimes. Because a lot of those friendships that are built upon transactions like this just can't last. Because we're human. We fail. We have problems. We hurt each other. And so these friendships sometimes, because we're built on trying to convince someone that we're worthy, they begin to break down. And we begin to feel so lonely, even though we can be in a room full of about 100 people. We can feel as though we are the only one. We are the only one who's dealing with this. We are the only one who's struggling with this. We are the only one who's questioning this. And it begins in our minds to really play havoc to the point where we come and we have this like dichotomy of life where on one hand we crave the closeness. We crave having someone who knows us, who sees us, who knows that it's not all about our Sunday best. It's about the reality of life, and we crave it. But on the other hand, we're very good at keeping people at a distance. We crave the closeness, but we're real good at people keeping them at a distance because we think that if they really, really knew us, if they really knew us, they would say, you're not worthy to be my friend. But yet the longing, the ache we have, the craving we have is for somebody to look at us with all of the failures, with all of the mess ups in life, with all of the junk, with all of the questions, with all of the struggles, with all of the stuff that we bring to the table and say, you know what? I'm your friend. I'm your friend. But it doesn't really work like that, does it? In the real world. And we go through life with this. But it's not just a Christian thing. There's a couple books written by Brene Brown. You may know her. She's a very prominent author nowadays. And she talks about how we think that our greatest compliment to a friendship is by us managing the image of what we're presenting to people. But in her study, she said it's the very opposite. The people who have the most connected relationships, who have the most authentic friendships, are the ones who are transparent with one another, who share the dark times, who share the things that are not curated, who share the things that in some cases may split a friendship. She says those are the ones that really draw people together. But it's our fear of being known that keeps us at a distance saying, I want it, but I don't trust it. I want you to be in relationship with me, but I don't trust you're gonna like the real me. And I got news for you. We're all feeling that way. We're all feeling like if people really knew who we really are, if they really knew what goes through this head of mine. I don't even want to know what's going through there. But we live in this tension of wanting to be known, but scared to be known. We want the closeness of relationships, but my goodness, I don't want to put myself in that position where you see everything. Because if you see everything, you might not like it, and you might judge it. Now, Jesus spoke into this. Jesus spoke into this, and the words that Jesus used should be almost sobering to us because the context in which he says what he says is just eye-opening in relation to his friendship with us. So I'm going to take you to the book of John, chapter 13. It's going to come up on the screen. We're going to leave it up for a while. But this is Jesus. Jesus right before he's about to be taken out, to be arrested, eventually crucified. His disciples who he's having this Last Supper with are going to deny him. They're going to scatter. They're going to run all over the place. They're going to really kind of mess things up because they're really confused about what's going on. Jesus has washed their feet. He's talked to them. He's given them all of him for 3 years. And these are the words that Jesus says to his disciples at this table. At the table that he's brought his disciples to right before he is going to be denied, he's going to be betrayed, and he's going to be crucified. Look what he says to these guys. In verse number 13 through 15, he says, "Greater love has no one than this, than someone lay down his life for his friends. You are my friends. If you do what I command you, no longer do I call you servants, for the servant does not know what his master is doing, but I have called you friends. For all that I have heard from my Father, I have made known to you." Jesus, sitting there with his disciples, uses this word, "You are now my friends." Now again, the word friend in our culture has kind of lost a little meaning compared to this. We use friend very, very loosely. I just mentioned digitally, we have thousands of friends, but we're not connected with them. I didn't even realize, 20 years ago, I would have never used the word friend as a verb. Have you friended him or friended her? We changed the whole language. This concept of friendship has kind of been watered down. If, single guys, if you're in the friend zone, that's not a good place to be. So this idea of friend, it's very loose compared to what it was there. The word friend there actually had more weight to it than that. In fact, there were some historians who wrote about the concept of just being a friend. And it wasn't loosely used. It was used in very specific situations that defined for people the relationship between one another. And you know what the main characteristic of it was? Transparency. Transparency. The friendship was that, hey, we really know each other. And even though we know each other, we're not going anywhere. We're sticking to it. That's the friendship that Jesus is referring to. There was also a custom in the Near East that used the phrase, friend of the king. And in that kind of idea, what it was is that the king invited a specific group of people into his throne room or into his chamber. Not aides, not his advisors, people who he could just be himself with. They were friends of the king. And Jesus is saying to his disciples, listen, at this point, you're not my servants. You're my friends. The transparency. I am going to share everything about me with you. I am going to bridge this gap into transparency so that you know I am your friend. And he says, basically, you are now friends of the king. Friends of the king. You have been invited into this place that isn't formulated. It is a relationship to where Christ has now called you his friend. Being willing to be open about who he is, being willing to share and be transparent. And this is what Jesus' approach is. You're no longer servants. You are friends. This is the offer. This is the statement. This is the identity that Jesus is offering to you. You are no longer servants. You are no longer religious in the sense that you just do this and do that and do this and do that. What I'm offering to you, Jesus says, is that you can be my friend. And what he says is, I am going to make everything I am open to you. And I already know everything about you. And yet, I am going to engage in this relationship. And the transparency is going to be so deep that even though you think you're not worthy, I'm not going anywhere. Even though I'm going to know all of it. He knew what was going to happen next. He knew Peter was going to go out and deny him. He knew Thomas was going to go and be doubtful. He knew his disciples were going to just scatter. And yet, in spite of that, he says, past tense, I have called you friends. This is the friendship that you're looking for. This is the friendship that defines the act of being known, all of it, transparent about being known, and yet still being accepted. Where Jesus says, I know it. You know what you don't want people to know? I know it. All of that stuff that you're embarrassed, I know it. But I'm not going anywhere because I call you friend. And notice the timing of this. It gets a little confusing because we get a little caught up here because he says at the end of this, I have called you friends. This is past tense. I have called you friends. But then up top, it looks like he's saying, you are my friends if you do what I command you. But the problem is, it's not transactional because this is the approach we normally take because this is the approach we take with our human friends. We want them to think we're worthy of their friendship so that once we're worthy, they will be our friends. But Jesus has it reversed. He has called you his friends, and out of that friendship comes the depth of that relationship, which drives you then to follow after him. You don't follow after him to earn the friendship. You follow after him because he gifted you the friendship. And that's a huge, huge understanding because it changes our perspective on our spiritual lives. Because it turns it from being transactional, where we're just trying to somehow get God's attention so he will be nice to me, to the understanding that regardless of all of it, the identity came first, and he has called you his friend. Therefore, out of a friendship, you will keep his commandments. It's like if I said to my son, if you do this, you're my son. It's if you are my son, then this is what's naturally going to happen. You are his friends. You've got to understand, there is nothing you can do to earn this friendship. The friendship drives the life change. The friendship drives the hope, the purpose, everything, because God has identified you as Jesus Christ's friend. The transparency of it all. And so Jesus has this table, this literal table in this context, this literal Last Supper table, where he's reclining. And he's inviting all of these guys to dinner. And much like today, when we have a dinner, a lot of times the concept is your mask comes off. And there's really the real you there. This is why when we talk, hey, you want to go grab a cup of coffee? It's not about the coffee. It's about the place where you can convene, you can connect, you can get together and allow yourselves to develop the relationship. And Jesus created this table for these normal guys, this fisherman, this tax collector, this doctor, all of these guys who are just going around through life. And he says, come to my table and you will be my friends. And even though, Peter, you're going to blow it here in a couple hours, and the rest of you are going to scatter all over, you're still my friends, and I know you, but yet I accept you. Transactional versus relational. And Jesus, in this setting, sets the tone by sharing with them everything that the Father has made known to me, I make known to you. He takes the first step. He takes the initiation in reaching out to us. And again, I got news for you. It's not because you're great. It's not because you've curated your life and you fooled Jesus. I mean, we can fool a lot of people, but we're not fooling Jesus. And he's not coming to us because we got it all together. If you got it all together, you're awesome. I don't have it all together. And if I'm depending upon his friendship with me to be based upon me getting it all together, I'm in a heap of trouble. But he initiates. And the beauty of this is that he wants to be your friend. He wants this. It's not transactional. It's not something that we perform to be friends. It's something that he takes the initiation on. So at this point, we could end. We could sing, what a friend we have in Jesus, and then go home. But this kind of leaves it up in this spot where it sounds good, but what does it really make a difference in your life? To say Jesus is my friend, yeah, okay, so what? What difference does that really make in our lives? Well, I want to kind of share with you three things about the difference it makes for me that possibly it can make for you. Real tangible differences that understanding Jesus' friendship can make for us. And the first one is, you don't have to pretend. You don't have to pretend. Our world I don't know what's real anymore, to be honest with you. And I have this attitude now where I think everything's fake. I think everything is, I don't believe anything. It's a bad place to be, but come on. I look at a video, I'm like, that's AI. It might not be, I don't know. But I question everything now. I question it all. But it didn't start with this kind of approach. It started with my relationships. Thinking that I have to pretend for you to think that I'm worthy of you. To think that somehow I have to pretend, I have to come in here and have it all together, or at least give you the idea that I have it all together. And you may think to yourself, well, okay, so we don't pretend. Well, that sounds good, but let me share with you how this really, really did a number on me. When I was a kid or an adolescent, I had the transactional understanding of a relationship with Christ, which translated into the understanding that because I had struggles, even as a kid, especially as a teen, even into adulthood, that those struggles weren't worthy of my friendship with Christ. Then I would get around spiritual people And that just was the nail in the coffin. Because when I would be around spiritual people, what I would see was a world in which it looked like nobody's dealing with the crap I'm dealing with. Nobody's dealing with this stuff that I'm dealing with. I look around and everybody's life seems to be all going well, spiritually speaking. I would look around and I think, oh my goodness, do these people not deal with pride? Do they not deal with greed? Do they not deal with lust? Do they not deal with all of these things that I'm dealing with? And so I learned real quick that I better pretend. I better pretend that I don't deal with pride, that I don't deal with greed, that I don't deal with lust, because if I show you that I struggle with those things, you're going to say, you're not very spiritual, are you? And so as a kid, as an adolescent, this became the way I dealt with stuff. When I got into my adulthood, this was my method of operation. I'm going to go through life. You will never know what's going on. You'll never know what I struggle with. You want to know why? Because if I show you, you'll think that there's something wrong with me. I would look around and I'm like, my goodness, I must live on some other planet than these people. Because the stuff I deal with, nobody's talking about it. Nobody's talking about it. There's no guy talking about, hey, I'm dealing with lust. Oh, really? What is that? I mean, come on. Really? Really? This is where we are? This is where we are, that we're just going to pretend that all of these things which have been the downfall of mankind don't exist in the church? We're going to just pretend that the struggles we have, if we name them, if we share that there's the struggle, we're going to kick somebody out? And what I learned was, the behavior I learned was that if you share the struggle in and of itself was as bad as the sin. And so I kept quiet because I didn't know where to go with it. What do you do with it? Hey, I'd like to get up here. I'd like to share with you some of my deepest, darkest sins. It doesn't work very well. But yet, I believe we all deal with it. And if you're looking for a place of people who have got it all together, who really are defined by this curated image, you shouldn't be listening to me. Because I'm stumbling through this life like everyone else in this congregation. I'm looking for the grace that has affected all of us. I'm out there struggling with greed, with pride, with lust, with all of these things that have become so taboo because we've said to somebody, if you struggle with that, you're not worthy of my friendship. And Jesus is saying, I know you're going to struggle with it, but I'm not going anywhere. You don't have to pretend. Now, of course, we don't want to go into the victim mentality and come in and we're all like, this is just me. Here I am in all my glory. But you know the sobering reality of what I'm saying here. The pretentiousness of the church in looking at people who are dealing with human issues that Jesus talked about time and time again. And instead of pushing people away, it's saying, thank God we're real. Thank God we're transparent. Thank God we're friends. The second thing is that you don't have to carry everything. You don't have to carry everything. We think that in this be, it might be that you're looking at your relationship with Christ as transactional rather than relational. The transaction says, if I do this, then Jesus will be my friend and he'll love me. And I see a lot of people, a lot of good intentioned people who are approaching Christianity and are approaching Christ the way they view Facebook or the way they view human relationships. If I can just show Christ how good of a person I am, then he'll love me. He already loves you. He already loves you. And the switch from transactional to where I'm doing this because I'm proving something to relational, where I'm doing this because we have a relationship, is life changing. I'm begging you. When we talk about prayer and Bible reading, stop looking at it like a checklist. Stop looking at it like something you have to perform to get God to notice you. Stop looking at it as something that proves you're a good Christian. Stop looking at coming to church as though something that checks off the fact that, hey, I did my duty for the week, or that you give and that's something that shows that I'm a good Christian. Stop it. Stop it. You're not performing. You're in a relationship. All of that stuff grows out of the fact that you have a Christ who has seen you, who knows all about you, who knows all your failures and says, I'm not going anywhere. And I'm begging you, when you pray, when you read your Bible, read it with the intent of the relationship. Because what changes is that no longer is he distant. He's a distant Christ who doesn't understand, to where he is right there with me. He is walking through this dark valley with me. It changes everything in our perspective. For years, I was transactional. I did things because I was supposed to do them. I was the servant that Jesus was talking about. I felt like a servant. Do this, do this, do this. Finally, I understood that's not what he's asking. He's saying, be real with me. Open up to me. Let me walk through this with you. Trust me. Let me hold your hand through this. The last thing is that you don't have to keep score. You don't have to keep score. Our relationships often are mired in this scorecard of, and who knows who's writing the rules for it, really. We do this, they do this, we do this, they do this, and so forth and so on. And there's not this sense of freedom within the relationship. In terms of when I have friends, I've had friends and, they've blown it, I've blown it, and, I've had friendships just dissolve. I've had friendships implode. I've had friendships fade away. I've had all of these things happen because at the root of it sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes there was just this thing, well, it's not going to work anymore. We're not going to be friends anymore. But in our relationship with Christ, in our relationship with him, there's no score because he's already won. He's already defined the outcome. But beyond that, I think the important takeaway here is that the more that we are in line with understanding our value to him and understanding our relationship with him, the more that is able to be seen in our relationships with each other. The more that you are able to understand that Christ is your friend, that you are valuable as a son and a daughter to Christ, not because of your own works, not because of what you bring to the table, but because what he's already done in inviting you to the table. The more secure you are in that, the more secure you are in your relationship with him, the more secure you are in the fact that regardless what I'm doing, he's still going to love me. And the drive for wanting to get better and the drive for getting closer is built out of that love and that relationship. The more that is going to impact the relationships in this room. And I'm going to make a conclusion. I'm going to draw to a conclusion as far as what that means. If we are dealing with interrelational issues in the congregation, if we're dealing with divisions, if we're dealing with people who just are constantly in this place where they're keeping score, they did this, they did this, they did that, something's not right with your relationship with Jesus right now. Because this relationship, when we accept it, when we absorb it, when we allow it to become the driving force, the foundation, it should transform every relationship we have. Because we're not coming out of an insecurity, wondering if everybody's going to like me for who I am. Because we know the one who really matters already likes us. And it's not that we walk around pridefully, hey, Jesus loves me. I don't know about you, but he loves me. It's not anything like that. It's the fact that now we're walking through feeling secure in our relationship with him, which transforms our relationships with one another. The fact that I can go to you and you can come to me with the goal of being known and still being loved. What a beautiful image of Christ's relationship with you that could happen in the church. The fact that you could go to somebody in this congregation and you could share all of that stuff. I used a bad word before. I apologize about that, but sometimes there's only certain words that communicate things. You know, that was an elder, so we're good. But imagine being able in this congregation to be the friend like Jesus was describing. To come to one another and saying, listen, I'm struggling. And rather than get we don't struggle here, you get the fact of somebody saying to you, I understand, and I'm not going anywhere. I'm not going anywhere. That is the relationship that Jesus has with you. He's not going anywhere. And if you want the physical, the real relational stuff, I'm opening myself up. If you feel like you got nobody to talk to and you feel like, talk to me. I guarantee I'm not going to judge you. I guarantee it. Because I got a closet like you. And Jesus went through that closet with a flashlight. And he's like, you know what? I'm not going anywhere. Not going anywhere. You are no longer servants. You are no longer transactional. You are no longer performance. You are his friends. And he said, no greater love than this, than a friend lays down his life for someone. And in just a few hours, that's what he did to put his money where his mouth is. And if you have doubts of his love for you and his friendship of you and his desire to know you and to be known, look at the proof of him willingly laying down his life for his friends. Stand with me. Let's close in prayer. Father, thank you for your word and thank you for Christ and his friendship for us. It seems like sometimes like a term that is thrown around and can be really construed in some meaningless ways, but the friendship of Christ at his table really has some incredible ramifications for us if we allow it to really become part of who we are. Thank you for this congregation. Thank you for the men and women who make this up, who really, I believe, really take your friendship and give arms and legs and feet to it. that we are a congregation that is welcoming to people who are just struggling through life, because we're all on the journey. We're all following the King, but we're all friends of the King. Thank you again. Give us a wonderful day. Thank you for the beauty of this day, and help us to enjoy it. In your son's name, amen. Okay, everybody, have a great rest of your week. We'll see you on Wednesday.